reasons. A lot of the unhappiness in this world and a lot of the unhappiness in our personal life is caused by cultural, social and socio-economic programming, which is put into our heads to make us assume the belief that we are a particular social archetype. And it's basically a program that our brain runs that tells us who we are and what we believe. But if you really examine it, and I'm not saying I'm immune to this because this has happened to me in my own life too, so I'm not here saying I'm smarter than you or anything like this. This was a very long journey in my own life to find this truth. And it is a truth that we're basically all mind controlled, and we are from the time we're quite young. It's our education system, and television and media plays a huge part in it. It creates a specific archetype that we are supposed to slot into and become. And it's not us, it's not who we're meant to be. As Terence McKenna said, culture is not your friend. Now, to give you an example of this, there was this woman I used to know. She was an absolutely lovely person. She was nothing wrong with her internal being as a human or anything like that. She was married to a man, and she left him for a woman, and she became a lesbian. But she seems to have become a super lesbian. Like, just actually the sexual identity of a lesbian wasn't enough for her. She had to develop a whole sort of politically correct lifestyle around being a lesbian. And one of the things that she did was she basically surrounded herself with black friends. Just black women, you know, successful black women. And she made a point of always being seen with them. And in her apartment there were photographs of her with all these black women friends. And she was involved in even though she was white, in a black civil rights group and all that. And that's fine, that's lovely, there's nothing wrong with that. However, by the same token, every time she met me, when I arrived in her town, and she was a lovely person, she could not help but make a joke about Irish people and drunks. As soon as she would meet me, I would get a story about, oh, I saw this t-shirt about Irish yoga, and it was a picture of a guy drinking and falling over and in all drunken positions. Big laugh, and I wouldn't get offended. I would just say, I'd say, oh, something like that, just make a glib kind of reply. But it did hurt and it did offend, but I knew it wasn't coming from a place of malice, so I didn't say anything at the time, which I'm kind of sorry I didn't now, but it's not as a judgment of that person, it's just to show how she was running a program. And another time she would meet me and it would be like, oh, I saw Family, did you see the thing on Family Guy about the history of the Irish race? They were all drunks and paedophiles and everything like this. Now, would she go and meet one of her black friends and say, oh, I saw this t-shirt and she wouldn't do that, because she's been programmed to not say that to black people, and that's correct, because that dehumanises those people. And just like her comments about the Irish being a bunch of drunks was dehumanising me, even though she didn't mean it that way and she wasn't particularly aware of it. It was still wrong. And it was still wrong based on the fact that she hadn't thought about what she was saying. She was simply running a program, and her program created a sort of a politically correct archetypal lesbian that was very uptight about racism and was very uptight about homophobia, but at the same time made it okay within the program she was running to make derogatory or racist comments about Irish people like me. Not meant in a vicious way, but still, it just goes to show that she did not consider that racism for the simple reason I was Irish and white. I can't help being Irish and white any more than she could help being a lesbian, any more than a Chinese person can help being a Chinese person. It's just the way things are. Now, I don't really drink. I do drink, but I barely touch the stuff. I'm not like a heavy drinker or anything like that. I don't go out of my way to be a professional Irishman, and yet that was still imposed on me. And so that's the difference between absolute and relative racism, and it just goes to show you that you really have to think about everything you're saying, because it's all put into your head. And it's put into your head by something called the psychopathic control grid. Well, that's what I call it. And the psychopathic control grid is basically government, media, mass media, big business, and social programming, and religious programming, and education that basically tells you, you are this, that's what you are, and this is how you should be. And it destroys your personal sovereignty, and it damages you, and it makes you vulnerable to exploitation, not only at the macro level by corporations, government and political parties, but also at the micro level by pernicious individuals who will see that you've already been broken down by the system and will come looking to exploit you as if they're waving a promissory note saying, okay, you're fair game, because you haven't properly safeguarded your consciousness against this. So anyway, that's something to think about. I'm Thomas Sheridan. I'm an artist. I'll be featuring more of my art and my painting. I'm also a writer. I wrote this book, which I'm very proud of, called Puzzling People, The Labyrinth of the Psychopath, how to recover from toxic people, situations and psychopathic control grids at the greater level. And I'd like to hear your thoughts about this in the comments, but please, I don't want anything about like, oh, racist liberals or any kind of sectarian or homophobic or anything. I'll delete those comments right away. I just want to hear what have you experienced this in your life, where your particular group, it was okay to be racist against them, but if for some reason or whatever, like if you know in America they tell terrible jokes about Polish people and so on, and that's okay. In England it's tick patty jokes and stuff like that, and even here in Ireland you hear racist jokes about travellers, and even when I was younger I used to do that myself. I won't do it now because I realise now then I was running a programme. So it's not a judgment on anyone, it's just to say this, think and you know, defend this thing up here, your consciousness, because believe me, that's the greatest thing in the universe. Yeah, and it's worth protecting. Okay, thank you very much.